Is Rachel a psychopath? It's a question a lot of people are wondering, right? After you see Tower of God. So of course, this is a spoiler video, right? So hello everyone, Monday. Obviously, it's a spoiler if you haven't seen the anime. That being said, right? So in last episode, especially in episode 13 of Tower of God, there's a lot of Rachel scenes that we see in her perspective, how she is thinking, and so on. So I want to then get to the bottom here and explain her mental state is, right? And also then, I think in the beginning here I have to give you a little bit, actually I suppose explaining, right, what a psychopath actually is, right? Because I think it's a huge misunderstanding, right? When it comes to empathy and so on. It's a classic misunderstanding. So first of all, I'm going to throw this line here, okay? If you want to see a really good psychopath in any kind of anime, manga and so on, hiro, okay? Hiro in Inuyashiki. This is, I say immediately, this is the greatest psychopathic written character in history of anime manga, arguably in any kind of fiction. He is the perfect textbook, truly a psychopathic character. The way he acts and so on. I won't spoil the anime to you in Inuyashiki. It's a very good anime, but yeah, Hiro is the best written psychopath I've ever seen in my life. I can say it immediately here. And of course, he has some similarities to Rachel, right? Obviously, he has that. But again, Inuyashiki. Yeah, turn off the video. Go, yeah, but seriously, that he is such a well-written character. And there's some other characters that I would say is a good psychopathic character. It's Doflamingo, right? Which is all the reason why, for some reason, my Doflamingo t-shirt, right? Also a well-written psychopathic character in One Piece then. And in my opinion, of course, the best written bad guy in One Piece by far. I think One Piece has a lot of good, of course, antagonists and bad guys, alright. But in Doflamingo from Oda is clearly by far the best written character. Some of them are definitely a little less good, but he's by far the best, well-written, most understandable bad guy and so on in a lot of aspects, right? But also his behavior is perfectly fitting the psychopath. So anyway, what is a psychopath? I have to give some cues on that, right? But also some other anime examples there where they clearly are psychopathic. So a psychopath is a person that is very, very rationalized. I think that's the first thing you think about a psychopath. It's a psychopathic personality traits. You have 40 different traits, but the main thing, right, is that the person is very, very logical and very rational. Okay, and what that means is that a psychopath can understand something is wrong, right, but do it anyway. I think that's like a huge misunderstanding here, and I keep saying it, and every time this concept comes up in the video, talk about empathy, right? So people have this huge misunderstanding that empathy means that this guy's so evil, like Rachel. She can, because people, right? When I read comments about Rachel and so on now since last week, a lot of people say that, Rachel, how could she betray Bam? Clearly, she has no empathy, right? Clearly a psychopath. That's what mad people will say, right? That is dead wrong, right? Dead wrong. Okay, so psychopaths have actually, if you look at the typical high functional psychopath, they have usually high empathy. That's the truth. They have very, very high cognitive empathy, but they have no sympathy, right? And they also they arguably have no affective or / emotional empathy. This is sometimes called warm or cold empathy. So basically, then obviously a psychopath will have very low warm empathy. But that's not really true either. It depends on the personality and so on, right? But basically, a psychopath, like with Rachel's case then, that she's actually being like mean and betraying Bam, actually does not mean, that she's not psychopath, because no. A psychopath can understand what they're doing is wrong and still, commit the crime, right? That's psychopath. A sociopath, most typical sociopath personality, is a person that doesn't understand what they're doing is wrong. I'm very simplifying here, right? But a sociopath, that's kind of that character that like hurts animals and kind of wow, this is working and so on, right there. That's kind of like a sociopath, right? A psychopath is high empathy, so they actually understand what they're doing, but they don't care about it. That's a huge difference there. And the thing then with a psychopath is that they have, how I say it then, so cognitive empathy means you actually understand, how people are going through it. And again, empathy then is actually just how do you understand someone, right? But having high empathy doesn't actually mean that you care about them, right? So that's a very nice thing. Another thing, typically for psychopaths, is that they're actually they actually do understand, again, right, betrayal and so on, right? And because they are very empathic, actually, that's how you think about it, they are very against betrayal. you're thinking like, what? But Rachel betrayed Bam. So in one way, you could argue that that would make her less of a psychopath. However, though, in the beginning of Tower of God, right, Rachel is like, never betray someone, Bam, especially not girls. So in that sense too, right, Rachel is building up that, you know, she actually really gets betrayal. But more primarily, though, what's important here, the psychopaths do actually have a lot of compassion and sympathy and so on for people that are inside of their, their circle, their personal circle, right? So think about Rachel when she's crying in, of course, this arguing, should I betray Bam or not, right? That actually, to me, is very psychopathic, because the thing is that she understands, of course, again, right? She's well aware of how, you know, empathy works, and by betraying Bam, he's gonna be sad and be distressed. So he knows it's gonna happen, yeah. She understands this typical psychopath. And she actually likes him. For a psychopath to betray someone they actually like is actually quite hard for them, because they have this trust issue, right? So they trust very few people, but if they actually trust this person, right, if you are in the inner circle, they actually care about you a lot, because they have put a lot of faith into you to be allowed into the inner circle. So it actually is quite hard for a psychopath to betray someone they actually care about. However, though, a typical psychopath, for example, if you have someone you're married to, okay, so you're married to, you know, a husband, and then you cheat on your husband, right? He goes home, sees you, you know, doing on a guy, whatever, yeah. In that situation there, a typical psychopath can easily then abandon you immediately, right? That's very psychopathic, right? The psychopath, as soon as you betray them, right, they would immediately throw you out, yeah. They have no issue at all. As soon as you're outside the circle again, they will never care about you, yeah. So that's kind of, that is very psychopathic, right? And that as soon as you leave the circle, you know, you're out, yeah. You're definitely out. And they don't care about anything unless you're in the circle, right? So again, her crying here, I think, it's quite psychopathic. Because she's like, well, I'm sad, but I actually do like this guy, so I don't want to betray him, you know, because it's hard for her to betray him deep down, right? But of course then, Rachel, the crazy girl, right? Immediately when she appeared in episode 13, we see her in her selfish, narcissistic personality trait. So we can argue that she's psychopath not, sociopath, that was one. But one thing that we're sure with Rachel is that she definitely has a high anti-personal disorder, right? So ASPDS, antisocial personality disorder. That is definitely clear in Rachel's case, because one typical trait of an SPD in both psychopathic and sociopathic, and in general the whole umbrella of this personality trait, is of course a megalomaniac ID strikes. Because Rachel, it is very, very for her, she wants to be the sun, right? So when I saw episode 13, right, and last week, I really liked that reveal that her dream is actually to become the sun itself, or to be the stars, or whatever, right? So earlier in the anime, we kind of didn't, like, Rachel was like, I want to see the stars, and I always felt that was like a weird dream, like, and the probably was a lie, and I said it as a, you know, watcher myself at the beginning of the anime. I was like, does it make any sense to me? Who wants to see the stars? I mean, I guess it's underground, but come on, like, yeah. But then we see episode 13, her dream is more that she actually wants to be the star, right? She wants to be both the main character, but also she wants to be the sun, the governing, everything. She basically wants to, you know, conquer the tower, right? In argument as well and so on. That makes a lot more sense. And that, of course, is very psychopathic, right? You want to have this megalomaniac, I am the greatest, right? No one's better than me, right? Super, like an incredible, typical trait then for, not the psychopath I mentioned, but any social personality disorder is, of course, an incredible, unmotivated, personal, you know, the personal view is incredibly inflated, right? Typical experience. Same with sociopaths and so on, right? All of these people, basically, with the Dark Triad, have issues with their incredibly, you know, self-love, right? Yeah, the narcissism and so on, right? So clearly, she's a narcissist. But I think that argument is easy to say with Rachel, right? She's clearly a narcissist to bare minimum, right? Absolutely, because she does everything for herself, right? If anything you watch the episode, you understand how egoistic she is, right? She's selfish, she is, right? It's incredibly narcissistic, right? Incredibly narcissistic. But that doesn't mean you're a psychopath or a sociopath, whatever. It just means you have that kind of trait in typical, you know, personality things on. Yeah, so that's a typical basic trait for being anti-personal thing. And of course, again, then wanting to be the sun pretty fits that, right? Perfectly so. But at the same time, then with Rachel, we do see her having struggles with her emotional journey of having to betray Bam. And here I have to say then, I don't actually think she's a psychopath, to be honest, even though I made a video, right? Because this to me it's too much of our like guilt and remorse trip and so on. You could argue for that. I think it's actually kind of hard with Rachel to actually determine this thing, because yes, she seems to have all this remorse and, you know, oh, should I do this thing and so on, should I guilt and cry and so on. But at the same time, as I just talked about earlier, a typical psychopath has a hard trouble betraying the actual family and so on, right? So there's a lot of people, I think, misunderstand psychopath, but they actually do that. And again, I want to spoil this anime, but I say it again, Inuyashiki, hero, amazingly written psychopath, right? And one of the best things with him, very minor spoiler, right? The main character basically in the anime, is that he really loves his mom, okay? And he's a mama's boy, but it makes so much sense because in that storyline, she's the only one to protect him and be his friend and so on, basically, and so on. And his older friend, he has one more friend too. But so basically, he's really cares about his mom, right? And you say, how can you be a psychopath if you can't? But psychopaths actually do care a lot about, again, right, people in their circle. So I think those extra scenes, you could argue and say they're either makes her have a lot of guilt, so not psychopathic, because that's the thing, right? They don't have remorse, right, and guilt mainly, and they don't have sympathy, right? So that's true. But at the same time, if you look at it from the perspective of she actually really loves Bam, but she still want to betray him, then it's actually very informed, like that she would be having all this crying and sitting and cowering in her room and so on, planning out her betrayal, right? So it's a little bit from an anime watcher then, I guess, how much she actually likes Bam. That is, I would say, determines if that is a psychopath trait or not, right? I don't know exactly what she feels for him, but I will assume here, for argument's sake, that she actually does like him a lot. And because of that reason then, this kind of scenes where she's crying in her bed and so on, you know, thinking of betraying Bam, is actually a psychopathic trait then, right? Given that I assume she actually likes Bam. And I think she does, right? From a high, you know, typical, like, rational, down point of view, right? So that actually makes her more psychopathic then. So yeah, but arguably, if she actually never liked him, then they would actually be less psychopathic. Even though it would be more manipulative, it wouldn't actually be that. But anyway, let's go on. So the next scene then, because we have this scene here, right? She's like, my body won't listen to me. So this is her rationalizing that she has to betray him, right? She's rationalizing that she has to betray him even if she doesn't want to do that, right? And I think that again then, I would argue that this is very psychopathic actually, because she likes him, right? But as I mentioned, this is coming from the perspective that I assume that she genuinely likes him, right? She genuinely likes him. As I mentioned, for example, with Hiro, he genuinely likes his mom, right? When they betray his mom, right? So it's hard for them to betray people they actually care about, and also undo and so yeah, Sympathetic, right? And also if you like One Piece or Flamingo, right? He actually does care about his own family members, right? He cares about the family, but if someone betrays his family, and what's the One Piece to you, but if you read One Piece, you probably know the backstory of Law and so on, you're like, yeah, then he hates them, right? So that's very psychopathic, right? As long as you're in the family, he will actually protect you. If you leave the family, especially with betrayal, he will absolutely kill you, right? So that's a very much typical psychopathic bad guy, right? Which actually is, how I say it, I think so, it's a big misunderstanding, right? Psychopath doesn't care about anyone, which is completely false. They actually care tremendously a lot about people as long as they are in their favor, right? So to speak, yeah. Which is kind of weird. They actually care more almost than other people, right? Because they're like, I really trust this person, right? But also, again, why betrayal is probably the biggest, you know, betrayal, righteous betrayal is a big no-no, right, for a psychopath, in both directions, right? For Rachel, again, in the beginning, when she is like, oh, never betray me, Bam. It's like, yeah, that sounds to me incredibly psychopathic to be against that, right? But at the same time, though, after she does the laughter thing and so on, she is trying to kind of crying and going to this state, right? And I think that actually, how to say it, this also makes her be a psychopath, because even though she has these emotions, right? Because obviously a psychopath is a gradient scale, so it can be like 1 to 40, basically, right? And the thing is that she might not be a full psychopath, right? But she has other emotions. You know, psychopaths can still feel, you know, sadness and happiness and so on, right? They have emotions. You know, they're not like robots. They have emotions. They're very, very rational. That's the thing. They're very, very rational, right? And also the sense that I think psychopaths too, maybe a side note from me here, but because they have very high empathy, actually, because they have very, very high empathy, that actually makes them be a little mean, so to speak, because they're like, the people saying that, oh, you don't understand my going through, this happened to me at work, and they're like, I understand you perfectly, that's why I know you're overreacting, but I actually do exactly what you're going through, and you are over exaggerating your pain, right? So that actually is a way that psychopath actually becomes a little meaner, because they actually have the understanding of, I know exactly what you're talking about, and what you are saying is bullshit, right? Because I've seen other people that have way worse life than you, whatever, right? What you're complaining about is nothing, right? Yeah. And in that sense too, that's a way of rationalizing emotions, right? So you can close your way off from emotions, right? Same thing here with Rachel, right? She feels his sadness and pain having to betray Bam, makes her sad, right? She can still feel sadness. However, though, she is now then rationalizing her own evilness, right? Basically, she's like, I am evil, because by doing that, she can rationalize away her own emotions, right? Because she has that betrayal, sadness, guilt, and so on, right? I think that's actually one thing that people, again, then are, not understanding psychopaths, right? That psychopath might, you say that they have no remorse one, yeah, but like a psychopath with no remorse, that's like a 40 out of 40. That's like a maximum, super deranged, that's like the gradient, maximum gradient, right? It's incredibly uncommon. It is much more common actually that it's like a Rachel, right? That a psychopath is like less full psychopathic, but they can rationalize their emotions. Oh, I betrayed him, but I am evil, so it's fine, yeah. So they kind of, by acting like that, you can remove yourself, detach yourself, right, from the feelings, and of course being basically self-manipulating yourself, right? Very psychopathic. So again, this points to Rachel being quite psychopathic, right? Because she is like rationalizing and way. And of course, the general story, I haven't talked about too much here, right? But of course, the whole thing with her being, oh, I'm gonna pretend to hide in my room and give another name and so on. Oh, that's very, of course, manipulative, which is, of course, a psychopathic trait. That's a textbook psychopathic, right? Very manipulative, trying to, of course, use Bam's emotions and so on. And I would say immediately too that also, of course, why psychopaths have high empathy, because to be manipulative, you have to actually have empathy, right? So that's like, I see it all the time when people are saying that this person doesn't understand me. Oh, it's like, oh, this person tricked me, manipulated me, he has no empathy. It's like, oh, no, he has to have empathy to be able to understand how to trick you. He's basically like no. So no. That is very psychopathic, right? She manipulates him, understands what button to push and so on. I would say one thing though, from a gaming standpoint, it's a game theory, I suppose, a better word. I don't feel that she's a very high functional psychopath though, because I think it's very stupid of her to be, of course, both manipulated by the other people, right? By the administrators, right, in the storyline, and also doing it this early to betray Bam, and also kind of half-ass how she got the other character to help her out. Let's carry up Rachel now. Yeah, all of that is actually quite non-psychopathic. And I will give you one thing in the end here why I don't think she actually is psychopath. Was the biggest way from it. But let's go on, right? So back to the emotional crying scene. I think this scene here too, though, is also very psychopathic, because not only that she's feeling this remorse and guilt of having to hurt the person she loves, right? Again, that actually is a psychopathic trait, but that she's rationalizing her own behavior. I mean that she understands that she is going to do something evil, right? Basically, a psychopath, again, then, very logical, very rational. That means they understand their own emotions. Typical high self-insight is a psychopathic trait, right? They have while they have incredible self-belief in self, a lot of selves here, they also do have very high understanding of self in general still though. And in this scene here, I feel that Rachel is basically portraying a typical psychopathic trait, as she is understanding that she is a monster willing to kill the one she loves. And that's what she is trying to push Bam away. And in that sense, that to me is actually, again, then also very psychopathic. Right? Because if she wasn't a psychopath or had empty disorders or generally, someone that betrays someone could simply be a passion crime, right? But psychopaths, they never commit crimes of passion because they're very, very low impulses, right? They have very high impulse control. So a passion crime is actually psychopathic, very low psychopathic, almost never, or basically they don't do it at all. And because of the reason, right, Rachel will betray him, but she's planning out the betrayal, right? Again, psychopathic, right? And then she knows that if you push me, I will betray you. Yeah, kind of like. So she tries to push him away instead, try to save him from herself, right? Because she's so self-aware of her own evil agenda, right? But still cares about him because he is in the inner circle, right? So again, that's a psychopathic trait. So you I hope you got what I mean here, but actually she's self-aware of her planned out betrayal, right? Makes her more psychopathic. Where a non-psychopath would just do the betrayal and then they would be sad afterwards. Right? Like a typical non-psychopath, they betray someone, they will betray them, and then they feel, oh, what have I done? And they will feel guilt afterward, right? She's feeling guilt before she betrays them, because she knows she's gonna betray them, right? But she's so self-aware, and that again is very rationalized in your brain, right? Logical brain. So that again comes into psychopathic traits. And here, of course, it's stern from in the beginning. She is like, never betray anyone, especially not girls. Because into her that she also is breaking her own belief, though. So I think you can also extend it and say that it might not only be that she loves Bam, but she also loves herself, right? And loves her own ideals, whatever you call it, right? So basically, she's like, I will never betray anyone, but I need to betray him for my own good, right? But in the end, I am evil, so I need to betray him for myself, right? So, of course, she also might be crying because she is flashbacking back to remembering, actually, I told him to never betray anyone, and I believe in that. She actually truly believes in that, right? Until it doesn't benefit herself. But you know what I mean? Like, she believes in that until the breaking point, right, of her absolute existence, right? So, arguably, she's also crying because she knows that she's gonna, break her own promise and her own life ideal and so on, right? Which can give her the, personal sadness, right, of failing and so on. I think you could argue for that as well, though. We kind of goes in both traits, right? And lastly, then, this thing, though, which I mentioned earlier, I think breaks her, though, from being a psychopath. So the thing is that, is Rage a psychopath? I can give you a lot of points why, but the thing is that this scene here is actually what I would argue for is a scene that kind of makes her very non-psychopathic, even though she acts like a psychopath for most of the storyline, given her perspective of things. Because the scene here and why it is not psychopathic, let me explain why then. So first of all, being selfish, being egoistic, and so on, right? All that is psychopathic, yeah, surely it's very psychopathic. And self-concern, and she wants to be the son, megalomaniac, psychopathic, so on, yeah, it's all as I mentioned, right? But the thing is that this in here, a psychopath wouldn't do this thing. So this is very actually non-psychopathic. What I mean by that is that a psychopath saying that, oh, how can I, get forward in the road, oh, betray my best friend, my lover? I can do that. Yeah, I can see myself doing that, even if I don't believe in that. But I could do it if I have to. Like that's kind of psychopathic, right? The problem with this scene, and I would argue and say that it's a bad writing scene. So I don't want to don't hate me, but if this scene didn't exist, and I feel the scene, but especially this scene, I would say that she's like a full-blown psychopath. But this in here, the reason then why it's not psychopathic right at all is because she's so emotional getting the reaction right. See what I mean? So the problem with this scene of her being a psychopath, because I'm not saying that this scene couldn't happen, right? But I'm saying that of course moves it from being high psychopath to kind of a medium, psychopath, right? And it's because she's so irrational. She's irrational. Very, very irrational scene from a psychopath because she's like, what? I can't fight this shit. How can I do that? Oh, it's unfair, yeah. Of course, a psychopath can see that system is unfair and so on. But a psychopath is very systematic and very rational. But they're very systematic because of that behavior, right? They approach stuff in a very systematic way, right? For example, a typical job for a psychopath is like a surgeon, right? Someone that is a doctor and so on, yeah, but basically surgeons and politicians and so on. They're very systematic, right? So a psychopath in this situation wouldn't act this at all. They would be like, wait, I have to fight that things? And they'd be like, well, this is clearly some magic here, and this door is opening for me. And they would rationalize all the different factors, right? They would be like, this door thing here, he's want to test me. So they would probably assume that it's like a leap of faith, right? I have to jump into this fish thing and fight it. And this magic guy will save me if I show my bravery or something, right? Which actually makes it not be brave, because a psychopath would rationalize why they're gonna do it, where bravery or courage is fighting your fears, right? So actually, a psychopath would very unlikely actually feel fear in that situation. They would be like, this is probably to test for me. So they would actually act it out, right? Like they're pretending to be afraid, but they actually aren't afraid because they are reasoning they're supposed to fight the fish as a test, right? See what I mean here? So her behavior here is incredibly non-psychopathic. But she's like, oh no, it's unfair, shitty rules, yeah. That's the opposite She's both having a passion crime there. She's having this passion moment, right? It's very losing her composure a lot, and so on, right? And she's also rationalizing the rules here, why this would happen and so on, right? And she becomes incredibly egoist, showing her true colors immediately, right? That psychopath wouldn't do. They would hide their colors as best as they can. As I mentioned, if a psychopath would fight a fish, they would pretend to be afraid, maybe, right? But actually, reasoning that they should be afraid. So you know what I mean. So they would be like a fake, a fox, a 4x fox, no, a 4x courage thing, yeah, pseudo courage. So this in here for me though, and I wish the scene wasn't here, because then I could say like, that could be like 10 out of 10 psychopath. But this in here is actually incredibly, I mentioned again, incredibly non-psychopathic, and makes her actually be, like this in here is the opposite of a psychopath would act. If even less than that. Like it is incredibly non-psychopathic in so many aspects, right? Because she's not rationalizing what's happening, showing her true emotions immediately, being being heat of passion crime, right? Wouldn't do that, so on. Immediately agreeing to betray someone. All of this breaks psychopathic. So unfortunately for this video, or fortunately, but I want to be honest here, right? I can't say that she's a full-on psychopath to this scene. So even though all the other scenes are basically like psychopath, oh, psychopathic. Especially with the app, she's like, oh, I'm gonna trick them now. It's like every damn other scene, and she also get the knife stabbing herself. Yeah, all of those scenes, like she's reasoning that she will be saved by her extra life, right? So all of those scenes, very psychopathic. But this in here, incredibly non-psychopathic, and also that she is being manipulated by the other guys and not understanding that they want her to push Bam into the water. They actually want that betrayal to happen. She should understand that and be a better trader, better deal trader with the other, guys and so on. So she's just rationalizing the system she's inserts herself into. So she's ignoring the system that she's inside of it, and that is not psychopathic at all. Psychopaths are very aware of system. For example, a psychopath is less likely to commit crime, right, than a normal person, right? For two aspects, right? They are very aware of system, so they know the laws and so on, right? They know how to, just be on the edge of not being a criminal if they want that. And on the same time, as I mentioned earlier, they don't do passion crimes, which Rachel here is a passion thing, right? So it just breaks one of two very fundamental traits of being a psychopath. That being said, though, everything else she does is psychopathic, basically. So I will give you this thing. I cannot say that she's a full-on psychopath. Long video, hope you like the video, guys. But I think she's basically in that kind of medium level, right? So you talk about gradient, right? So Rachel, I would say she is like a 25 out of 40 psychopath. Of course, there are other factors too, which this video can be for 3-4 hours, but I say somewhere around here. It's like she has a lot of traits, but she's not a full-on bloody psychopath, right? She's not that kind of actual psychopath tendency, because she has, especially this scene, and also the general, she's not understanding the system around her, She's not rationalizing basically the environment around her, which doesn't make any sense from a psychopathic tendency. She should do that a lot more. And also she should rationalize how she's actually going to climb after Bam. I think one thing I actually do miss, this could be me as an anime only guy, but I wish we would have actually her perspective on seeing how she's going to climb after betraying Bam. They never explain that. Of course, we know that Rack and so on couldn't help her out. I know we know that from actually seeing the scene, but they never explained how she, rationalized before what she would do after betraying Bam. So I think that actually is a lack there, but that might just be me as an anime only watcher, not having read the actual. The manga might have better explained all her rationalizing skills though. So I will leave it at that though. But I think she's basically like a medium level psychopath. And that's the video, guys. Subscribe, press the like button, of course, next week, on this weekend, and of course next week we're having all new animes, right? We finally have, of course, Zero. I keep saying it every day. We finally have my Zero, my RAM, and so on, right? We have that. One Piece is back. I'm gonna do some One Piece reaction after a few episodes, I feel. We have, of course, all that's coming, right? We have the extra and Decadent and so on, right? So anyway, see us with that in the coming weeks. That's gonna be exciting. Of course, one thing I really forward to is doing the opening reaction after the Zero, so one look at the new openings. I'm a huge anime opening fan, guys. I want to see all the new animes, and of course also have something, God of High School and so on, next month and so on. So subscribe, and have a great day.